Hello, everyone. Um, Yesterday, or last night rather, I feel like I have a burden lifted off my shoulders. It's been a long time since I had what you would call a partial astral experience. I've had full bodied, out of body experiences before that I mentioned in my hellish experience, my heavenly one, where basically 100% of my consciousness was out of my body and experiencing other realities. But I've had many others. Like it's absurd to put percentages on on these things, but I've had quite a number of others where 50, 75% of my awareness was not just dreaming, but I actually experienced the sensation of exiting my body. And this is what happened to me last night, where I felt a portion of my consciousness or something actually leaving through my forehead. When I had my hellish experience, I remember clearly that I left through my back, through my lower back, and I went straight down deep into the underworld or whatever. So, what makes this, why do I feel relieved, is because when this happens, I feel a sensation of liberation, that I could temporarily be freed from the imprisonment and burden of being in a body, which I've always felt is very confining, very restricting, very limiting to how I want to explore consciousness. So I woke up with a sensation of feeling just peace, calm, joy in a very genuine way, which are sensations that I very seldom feel. Very seldom. I usually feel a heavy weight on my shoulders, a heavy weight on my chest. I walk around feeling a heavy burden day in and day out, with uh, with limitations of anything else. Anywho, okay, we gotta go right back to San Francisco. So, a few weeks ago, I described a blackout dream in which, for an unexplained reason, I drove up to San Francisco, drove past the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was completely dark. And I parked across the bridge, and I just stood there without any further context of what was happening. This time I was back in what could amount to almost the exact same location. It was a sea cave, and I looked up sea caves um, this place is called Marin County, north of San Francisco. I've been there before. I've been to San Francisco too many times to count, but I don't know about any caves in the area, but it turns out there's a lot of caves and there's a lot of sea caves. And one in particular that I looked up on Google Images looked exactly like the one I saw in this experience. But it was very different because of what was inside this cave. So, um, I was a female. I was experiencing myself as a female, and there were others with me. There was probably a dozen or so other personnel, and we were like some kind of a commando unit. And we were traveling in what looked like a submarine of some sort. And we were spying, or kind of attempting to infiltrate this sea cave, um, because there was something there. This is why it's so hard to describe, because I'm talking about what was either a future timeline of Earth or a parallel dimension. So, what we were looking at inside this cave was like some sort of massive complex. And there was computer systems, there were people there, dozens of people, and it was, the infrastructure was very advanced. There were stairwells everywhere, rooms, concrete. It wasn't just a cave and then that was it. There was some structure built into it that had some sort of purpose that to us was malevolent, or it had some kind of a very it had a very, I don't know what's the word, important purpose for these people. And these people, they didn't look like professionals. They kind of resembled pirates. Reminds me of that movie way back in the day in the 90s, Waterworld. This is how they were dressed. So they had like this disheveled clothes, like all these patterns everywhere. They had big rings on their ears. Like they looked like pirates. But then there were others there that were in uniform. So it was a combination of these like disheveled looking people with these professional uniformed officers working together in this strange cohesion with these sort of computer systems. And I remember seeing green and red lights everywhere and things that kind of look like lasers. It was something straight out of a movie. And all of the sensations were ultra real here. So in a typical dream, I would be experiencing, you know, fairly strong, at times tactile sensations, but it's mostly mind. It's mostly just mind perception. This, I touched the wall and I felt it. I vividly felt it in this experience. So, as we approached the sea cave, we were like a commando unit, like I said, like Delta Force or something like that. All black uniforms, weapons, and we're kind of behind the cave, and we're trying to infiltrate it to go in and kind of attack them essentially. And I was one of the first ones that actually kind of secretly made it inside. And I met one of my family members there. And one of my family members, I don't want to say who he is, but he was kind of on the inside. So he basically let me in there because he was a spy on the inside, basically. And he let us kind of infiltrate the sea cave. And then, like, basically a battle ensued. At which point, this is when things got really strange. There were booby traps everywhere in this cave, which affected our personnel. And I remember something coming out of my hands, like I had some kind of superpowers on top of the weapon I was using, like these lasers that were coming out of my hands. It was absolutely ridiculous. But the thing I felt so deeply, so vividly, was being in this female body. Like I just knew it. It was just inherent in that moment to such a degree that it was indescribable. Like I couldn't mistake it. So this fight ensued. Everything became chaotic. I don't know what happened. We somehow ended up, our unit, whatever was left of us, we were unable to breach the cave. We go across the bay into the city of San Francisco, which was completely deserted. It looked like there hadn't been any life there for 50 to 100 years, 50, 75 years at least. There were overgrown weeds just completely covering the buildings. The asphalt was just grass. I saw no people anywhere. It was like your classical apocalypse movie. Your kind of like I don't know, sort of reminded me of I Am Legend, like the way a city would look like after it's been abandoned for decades. And so we're walking inside of some sort of parking structure, right? And then we're just walking around the city, like looking for stuff. I don't know what we were looking for, but we found something completely out of place. And this is when things gone from what the hell, that was weird as hell, to weirdness on an entirely new scale. So we approach what looked like a replica of the White House. It was pristine, like it's been polished and taken care of every single day by maintenance personnel and by landscaping, which was in stark contrast to the surrounding areas of this demolished city. And it was a replica, and it was a miniature replica, so it looked like it was designed for dwarfs. Like it looked like a dollhouse, at which point we found out it kind of was actually a dollhouse, and it was a mix between a dollhouse and a museum. So we go inside, and that's what we see. We see dolls of presidents everywhere, US presidents. These puppets, they're probably around 4 foot tall. There was paintings on the wall all over the place of historical events that happened in the United States. I remember clearly seeing the Battle of Gettysburg, Civil War type memorabilia. I saw other events that transpired that were big in our history, and these puppets of presidents. I walk around, I go inside a bathroom, and next to a sink sat there a puppet of Donald Trump, and he became animated. He came to life, the only puppet I could recall that actually came to life, and he grabbed my hand in anger. He was seething in anger, and he wouldn't let go, and I could just sense his rage. And at that point, I came to and I awoke. Interesting to note is that I was also curious why I'm in Marin County 2 times in a dream over the last month, across the Golden Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate being the spiritual Golden Gate has to have some kind of symbolic element to it. Interesting gematria associated with Marin County. It adds up to Joe Biden. It also adds up to the Antichrist. So you have the Antichrist and Joe Biden mixed in with this location, which could tie in to some sort of future computerized system in a sea cave that is used as a system of control after the collapse of civilization. You see how it's all reciprocal and tied together, and it's sort of retroactive, I suppose. And one thing I understood profoundly, all of this, everywhere, every location that you're in, every consciousness that you embody, every person that you see, every plant, every universe is right here. It's nowhere else. You have access to every dimension that ever was and ever will be forever, because it's not located anywhere. It's located right here and always was. So whatever is happening in that sea cave is happening in the past, or in the future rather, in the past, all simultaneously. And for some reason in this experience, I got to understand that on a very much deeper level, how it's all here and now, and how all of these timelines and dimensions interlink like a chain and affect one another. They're not separate like you think. Whatever happened in that sea cave 100 years from now, whether it's on this timeline of Earth, or it's on a future timeline, or it's a totally parallel dimension, it is affecting something that's happening right now. I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I actually want to ask you this time to share this one. I feel in my heart it's important. I want to know more information on what you think the symbolism is behind seeing Trump, behind the commando stuff. We could gather a lot of information from this one. I feel like it's important, and I really want to know your opinion on it. Please share that in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.